In the genes, DNA analysis confirms that remains found near Ekaterinburg a year ago do belong to members of Russia's last Tsarist family, executed by Bolsheviks 90 years ago. Well, a very good evening to you. It's just gone 9 p.m. here in the Russian capital. You're watching RT live from Moscow with me, Alice Hibbett. Now, the missing members of Russia's last royal family could finally be laid to rest. DNA tests indicate the remains found near Ekaterinburg a year ago do belong to Prince Alexei and Grand Duchess Maria Nikolaevna. It comes as Orthodox believers are gathering in Ekaterinburg to mark the 90th anniversary of the execution of Tsar Nicholas II and his family by Bolsheviks. Well, RT's Igor Ogorodnev is at the occasion and now joins us live. Igor, we understand the main events are now getting underway, so can you tell us how Orthodox believers are marking this anniversary?
Well, at the moment, the main nighttime service, which is staged just at the same time as the royal family was slain, it has begun. It is being conducted by the local archbishop. There are going to be present in the audience also members of the Russian royal family who are living abroad, who've come specially for the occasion, also highly placed clergymen, and of course hundreds and hundreds of ordinary people. But here in Ekaterinburg, it's not just been about this service. It has been a whole week of festivals, and not just religious but also historical and social events, so-called Days of the Tsar. And in fact, the city has been flooded with pilgrims. You could see people everywhere in the city with icons. You could see people who'd blatantly been bussed in from far away, and they've all been participating in the cultural activity, and they've all been commemorating the Tsar in various ways. Tonight, after this service, which has now begun, is going to finish, there's going to be a procession starting from this church, and this procession is going to go from this church, the place where the Tsar was actually killed, to the mine shaft several miles away, where the royal family was stripped, and where they were put down the mine shaft, and where they were shot at and burned, so which the church officially considers their last resting place. So it is not just going to be the service, there's going to be a huge procession as well.
Of course, this is a double celebration coinciding with news that the final missing royal family members were identified. So how important are these findings?
Well, if we choose to believe, and there is considerable DNA evidence which allows us to do so, that the 5 bodies discovered in 1991 belong to the royal family, and if we now add those 2 bodies which had been discovered just a year ago, then we have all the 7 members who are supposed to have been shot here in Ekaterinburg 90 years ago. And if we have this, then obviously this whole mystery which has been going on about what's happened to the royal family may finally be resolved. Now, for more on this mystery, I went around and I had a look at some of the sites, and I spoke to some of the people who are still doing the research so many years afterwards, trying to find out just what happened.
Мальчик, обнаруженный в захоронении.
The remains of the boy we found in the burial place prove that he is a son of Alexandra Feodorovna and Nicholas II. We got irrefutable data both from a male and female line, and it's more evidence that this is the royal family.
Of course, some people are saying not so fast. Some of the historians I've spoken to are saying that perhaps some of the results were rushed in order to coincide with this 90th anniversary, and that in fact we have already heard an announcement that more additional testing is to be done to establish a complete DNA match. But either way, this has been one of the most gripping mysteries, and this is a report which I put together whilst going through this area and trying to see some of the sites myself and trying to decide who's got the truth in this situation. This church stands on the spot where in the early hours of July 17, 1918, the last Tsar of Russia and his family was shot. Nicholas II had abdicated less than 2 years earlier. Now the bodies of the royal family were stripped and burned. After a failed attempt to conceal them in a mine shaft, they were taken to a nearby field, drenched in acid and buried.
This was one of the greatest crimes in the history of humanity. This was not just an attempt to kill a family, but to destroy Russia itself, and Russia paid the price with its subsequent history, because the Bolsheviks acted without legitimacy.
This is the most common account of the death of Nicholas and his wife and 5 children. But many facts in this story are contested. The death of the royal family was the beginning of a 90-year mystery that has spawned hundreds of alleged survivors, dozens of archaeological digs, and tens of theories, both well-researched and wildly speculative. Within a year of the death, those claiming to be the slain Tsar's children cropped up. The most famous is Anna Anderson, who spent her life in a legal battle to prove she was in fact Princess Anastasia. The Soviet authorities covered up the executioner's accounts. The house where the family was killed was pulled down. Alexander Avdonin is an amateur archaeologist and historian. Armed with primitive tools and piecing together information from different accounts, his team claims they recovered the bodies of Nicholas II and others here in 1979. Certain they would be arrested if anyone found out, then they reburied them. When the USSR collapsed in 1991, they returned to the site, and this time the remains were submitted for DNA testing. While most experts say the bones belong to the royals, the Russian Orthodox Church and many historians are not convinced.
There are people who want the endless speculation to continue. They're historical counterfeiters. They just carry on publishing false data. And with the freedom of the press, people can just say what they like.
A year ago, further remains supposedly belonging to Crown Prince Alexei and his sister were recovered just yards from the first site. But solving the mystery of their authenticity is not the most important thing.
We must remember and recognize what a monstrous crime took place here, and the Russian authorities must make every effort to condemn this slaughter. The Church has already done as much as one could to glorify a person. It recognized the Tsarist family as saints, but we still don't see the government doing anything to condemn this crime.
President Boris Yeltsin attended the interring of the first remains 10 years ago. A monastery has opened on the site where the Romanovs were initially buried, and lavish commemoration ceremonies are planned for the 90th anniversaries of the deaths. But with new information constantly coming into the frame, it appears there is a long way to go before this gruesome chapter in Russia's past is put into context for its people and for history's sake. Of course, at the moment, Ekaterinburg is absolutely chock full of people who've come to pay their respects to the Tsar and his family. There are, as I said, going to be a lot of commemoration ceremonies. But one person who's come to visit is Tamara Ventura Laduska, who is a member of the Monarchist Center in Australia. And you're no ordinary pilgrim, you're no ordinary visitor to the site. You have a special mission, is that not true?
That's correct. I brought some holy relics that belong to the imperial family, brought them back to Ekaterinburg, where they originally came from. Particularly the shawl that was crocheted by Olga, Tatiana, Maria, Anastasia, Grand Duchesses, for the Tsarevich Alexis when he was a child. That shawl was treasured by him all his life. The only possible place to return it to the place where they lost their lives. So.
Tamara Ventura Laduska, who represents the monarchical organization in Australia. Well, as I was saying there, it's unlikely that this is the end of the story. At least what we have heard from the Russian Orthodox Church is them saying, we've been told that everything's been clear before, and we're going to choose and wait until we believe everything that is being said. We're going to reserve judgment for the moment, and we're expecting to hear exactly the same things from the royal family as well. So although this DNA testing could prove, in fact, to be the end of the story, not everybody is likely to believe it in any case.
All right, for now, Igor Ogrednev reporting from the Ekaterinburg region. Thank you for the update.